The Elbow River is connected to an alluvial aquifer. What and where is it, and why is it important to limit development on it?
So this is one of my favorite subjects. So if you go down to the Elbow River and you look at the what we call the substrate, or the bottom of the Elbow River, you see that it's mostly gravelly. And then near the shore of the river, where there's no vegetation because the river scoured it as the flows go up, you see that gravel kind of extends. And if you look then further away, you'll see that there's pretty much flat-lying land until you get to an escarpment. And so all of that flat-lying land, sometimes on both sides of the river, sometimes on one side of the river, is gravel, like the gravel that you see that was deposited by the Elbow River some time ago. Could have been a few years ago, could have been a few thousand years ago. And then if you were to dig a hole anywhere in that gravel, you would get to water, and that would be the water table. And that is groundwater, and the groundwater is typically flowing kind of in the same direction as the elbow. And every time the river cuts across, then the groundwater flows into the Elbow River, and then on the other side, the Elbow River will flow into the groundwater. So there's a lot of what we call groundwater surface water interaction. Groundwater flowing into the Elbow River and Elbow River flowing into the groundwater. The issue then is, if you have a land use which allows any contaminants, any nutrients like nitrogen or phosphorus, like fertilizers or sewage or manure, to get to the groundwater, it flows eventually into the river, and it could do that in a few hours, it could do it in a few days, it could do it in a few years or a few decades. But it does flow into the river, and then it would contribute to water quality degradation. And I think that this is one of the reasons that we see this slow decline in water quality over decades that has been observed in the monitoring programs that are conducted by the city and by the province. And I think if we keep doing intensive land use on the Elbow River, like we do close to Calgary, for instance, where there's all kinds of new developments, if we keep doing that the whole way along the river-connected alluvial aquifer, that will have a continued slow decline in water quality to the point where we'll be pretty unhappy with the water supply for the city of Calgary. So there's a river-connected alluvial aquifer on either one or both sides of the Elbow River, so that's the flat-lying sands and gravels. And then if you go up the escarpment, then you're up on the prairies, which are typically glacial materials over bedrock. And below Bragg Creek, and up to Calgary and beyond Calgary, east of Calgary, the climate is semi-arid. That means that there's typically more water in a given year that's evaporated or transpired by plants than rains. So the water that falls in the uplands doesn't typically make it to the river because there's not enough of it, not enough precipitation. And that ties into the fact that the discharge, or the flow in the Elbow River, doesn't really change between Bragg Creek and Calgary. That's because there's no bigger contribution from the uplands. So really it's a land use on the alluvial aquifer that's important. There are tributaries, small tributaries. There's Millburn Creek and Permay Creek and a couple of other creeks. They're really small discharge, and they do have really poor water quality, but they don't contribute as much to the water quality degradation as the land use does because there's such small flows. One thing that makes the Elbow River really special is that I think it might be the only river in the world whose major end use is drinking water. So the Elbow River flows into the Glenmore Reservoir, and then it supplies currently something like 400,000 Calgarians with drinking water supply. So while I'm saying that we shouldn't develop on the alluvial aquifer, the Elbow River connected alluvial aquifer upgrading of the reservoir for the City of Calgary residents, the truth is that the City of Calgary is completely built on the Elbow and Bow River alluvial aquifers downtown. The difference is that the City of Calgary was founded a long time ago, far before we knew about groundwater surface water interaction and the effect of land use on groundwater quality and then surface water quality. But we know about it now. We haven't known about it for very long, only the last decade or two. And now we can make a change, I think, to land use on the river-connected alluvial aquifer of the Elbow River that will provide good drinking water for our children and grandchildren. So when we think about watershed protection now, most of the Elbow is pretty well protected above Bragg Creek, So really the watershed, the part of the watershed that needs to be protected is this river-connected alluvial aquifer on either side of the Elbow River.
The alluvial aquifer is actually connected to the Elbow River, and so the groundwater that goes into the alluvial aquifer eventually makes its way into the Elbow River. And why this is so important is that whatever you do on the alluvial aquifer, any land use that you do on the alluvial aquifer on top of it, will eventually, the contaminants will eventually make its way into the Elbow River. So we need to be very careful what kinds of activity we take part in on the alluvial aquifer and what kinds of development we commit on the alluvial aquifer. The Elbow River Watershed Partnership, in conjunction with a whole bunch of other stakeholders within the watershed, has put together a water management plan. And one of the recommendations in that water management plan is to limit development on the alluvial aquifer and actually not permit any new development that doesn't improve the water quality of the Elbow River.